Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the SimDem Today podcast. I am your host, Tripod, and joining me today is State Attorney Lyoko. Go ahead and say hi to everybody, give them a little introduction.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Lyoko. Some of you guys probably might know me on the Discord as not Lyoko, which is kind of funny. How's it going? I'm the Deputy Attorney General.
Nice, nice. What's the story behind not Lyoko?
Whenever it was a joke that I kind of took from Ghost, I can't remember why, like somebody was quote unquote hunting for ghosts, so he changed his profile picture to have the Mexican sombrero and like the giant mustache. And I thought that was kind of funny, and he changed his like name to Spectre or something. So I kind of just on the nose took the logo, drew something in Microsoft Paint, and then just stuck it on there.
Nice, nice. And you said you were Deputy Attorney General. How long have you been a state attorney?
So I've been a state attorney since probably my second week here, so about a month and a half now.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I guess you've been doing it since day one, I'm assuming.
Pretty close. Yeah, it took some time to get certified by the bar, but at that point, it was I believe Bennett was looking for state's attorneys at that point, and I just threw my hat into the ring.
Oh, nice. Not to brag, but I literally got certified day two.
Oh, look at you.
I know. I'm special.
Yeah,
So
it took
what's it
them.
like?
I think they had a backlog, I think, with me.
So what's it like at the Attorney General's office?
Um, it's a lot of work, I will say. I would say probably more than most, if not any other department in SimDem. I think the DOJ probably has the most on its plate because, you reckon over 1,200 members, lots of general chats, lots of stuff to keep track of, lots of laws and regulations about what you can and can't do and can and can't say.
On
And we have
top,
to keep, right. So we have to keep track and enforce that stuff.
yeah, on top of everyone and their mama committing hate speech violations every other minute.
Yeah, it's a very common one that we see.
It's actually crazy. And I hear y'all got such a shortage of attorneys at the AG's office. Like, how many are y'all down to now?
Well, we just hired two more. But so we had three of them. I think it was all three of them got appointed to the bench. It was Ed, it was Ben, and it was Heinrich. All three of them were SAs in the state's attorney's office, and all three of them got appointed to the bench. So after that, all that was left was me, Mr. Gamer Boy technically, but then he got elected to Senate. So you know how that goes, splitting your time between the Senate and then doing your other jobs. It just doesn't work out that well.
Oh,
Um,
nice,
that you think.
nice.
But we just hired two more. I believe it's Ferris and Thoughts both got hired, and we're always looking for applications for more people. It's always better to spread the workload around, so that way we're not pushing it all or one or two people and burning people out. That's what we don't want. Once this becomes like a job, it's not fun anymore.
Oh no, I get that. Mm. I recently got hired to be the deputy archivist, and then Ferris is like, yeah, you'll actually have to start doing work." I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah, I did notice that because Ferris was the deputy and then got appointed and then I guess made you deputy. I saw that I think today or yesterday.
Good thing I dropped my resignation when I Muggy appointed me Secretary of Defense.
Nice.
Mm. Yep. So, moving back to a previous statement, you said one of your state attorneys got elected to the Senate. How do you feel about elected officials taking on additional jobs in SimDem when there are plenty of people looking for work? Because I hear complaints from a lot of people over the past few weeks. Oh, I'm only living off my stipend.
And that's the weird thing about the economy in SimDim. Obviously, the most amount of money that flows into the economy is from the government, but then it's kind of this weird thing of one, what do we do with the money? And two, what's kind of the whole point of having the jobs to have this money that we can't really do much with? And obviously that's a question for the Treasury Department and the folks at the Bureau of Commerce Statistics and all of them to kind of figure out and pave the way for. As far as people holding kind of jobs in both, I don't necessarily see it as that big of an issue. I would say it would be an issue if you're a senator and like a cabinet secretary or a deputy secretary. But if you're just doing a job and you know it's it's not going to interfere with either one of your duties, then I'd say if you have the bandwidth for it, go ahead.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I remember it was a big scandal when we noticed that Muggy had like 5 different jobs on top of what being a senator too.
Yep.
That was crazy. So, again, speaking of state attorneys, let's talk about the hot new case hitting the attorney general's office. The whole Tide party. Want to
You
give a
know,
few words about that?
are you talking about the real Tide Party or the fake one?
The real Tide party.
Okay,
Both
it's
of
like,
them are jokes, by the way.
yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, so the Tide Party is and obviously, without discussing things that are privileged information, Tide Party was definitely something, something that was on our radar, almost off the rip. Our partners at the Office of Homeland Security and the SDBI are very good at their jobs. They're very vigilant people, and a lot of times you just get a feel for people when they first get in here and what they're going to do and what they want. And so we originally tried to perform some enforcement action on them, which obviously didn't work out so well, and it got a whole bunch of people involved, and it got kind of messy. But now, obviously, tonight the other shoe kind of dropped, where they released a whole manifesto, effectively espousing a bunch of anti-LGBT nonsense, really, while trumpeting these dog whistles of the natural order and traditional values and whatever else, whatever garbage they want to peddle.
And so, would I be correct in saying that Tide is the SimDem version of the American MAGA?
I would say yes and no. There's definitely a lot of comparisons to be made. However, I think the comparison for Tide is more a bit on the nose, where they're kind of just here to just espouse this hateful bullshit that they've kind of been really hinting at for a little bit, and then finally the other shoe dropped tonight, and are that's their only purpose in life, right? So I think that's probably a little bit where it goes beyond what the American MAGA might be. And I know this kind of gets into like the real life politics and the political divide in America and all that jazz.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I don't mean to offend or anything, but I do let the public know I am a real life Democrat. I do not support any of this Project 2025 bullshit.
Yeah,
But and
and of course, obviously the other comparison is that they released the Tide 2025 thing, which is obviously a big talking point tonight now because it obviously espouses some pretty hateful rhetoric
yeah, of
and
course.
ideas, and obviously that's a that could almost be seen as a direct comparison to the Project 2025 thing that was a big talking point, especially last year during the election cycle.
I'm just wondering if they get elected to the Senate and to the presidency, am I going to see the price of SimDem eggs rise to $10 a carton?
I don't know. It's cheaper to just buy chickens.
Hope they don't get infected with the SimDem bird flu.
Yeah, that'd be really bad for the egg prices too.
Anyways, well, at least we know that if the government's fucked up, we can blame someone other than Noel. Moving on, moving on to our sponsor of the day. Today's sponsor is the People's Bank. Remember, if you really want to get into SimDem, take a loan at the People's Bank and dive into the economy, start a business, or even gamble a little away. Remember, the National Institute of Health says that gambling improves your health, happiness, and social life. Something you're going to need a lot since you're on SimDem, because you obviously have no life other than this. Contact Awesome Olive for more information. Mm,
Far be it from me, because I'm not a real life doctor or anything, but part of me thinks that the National Institute of Health actually doesn't say that.
I don't know. I don't know. This looks pretty convincing. I read it on the internet, so it must be true, right?
Oh shit, you got me then.
Nice, nice. So let's take a step back from the whole Tide thing. Let's talk about a controversy that happened, I think, like 3 weeks back when I was still vice president. For those who haven't been weren't on SimDem back then, a few weeks ago, a group of Eastern Asian trolls joined the server and started a party known as the Proletarian Unity Party. with their goal to be a create a Oriental communist utopia in SimDem, which sounds good on paper, but as we've seen with communist states in the past, doesn't really translate well into the real world, and obviously not on a Discord server. Lyoko, I believe you were a part of that whole investigation and action taken. Would you like to give your story about that?
Sure. Obviously the PUP was on my radar, just because one of the first things they did was post this giant manifesto about replacing the Senate and replacing all the parties. So, for people who don't know, I'm the author of SimDem Government at a Glance. So I responded with a meme that was just the entire government, but it was all just the PUP colors, which I'm sure they didn't like that. And then I responded with a Tank Man meme, which I'm sure they didn't like that either. But obviously they kept their cover relatively well for especially for such a larger organized group. But eventually, things get out, people talk. You can't keep secrets forever. And once the other shoe dropped on that, it was almost immediate in the morning that day where all the counterterrorism bans went out. And that was the end of the PUP effectively. Obviously, our partners at the SDBI and the Office of Homeland Security are always monitoring the situation for any kind of PUP activity or any other similar kinds of incidences in SimDem. But today we're pretty confident in the security of SimDem as well as the integrity of our democracy and of our elections.
Of course, of course. Uh, I believe that the PUP had some good points, but once I started diving into Operation Kashmir, which was the investigation into the PUP, their main server,
hmm
I just became disillusioned. I was racing to get them banned.
It was pretty horrendous. Obviously most of it's still classified, but I will say the content in their main organizational server was pretty horrendous. And I think once our partners in the Supreme Court, once the MBH, the Independent Ombudsman saw it, once our colleagues in the Senate saw it, everybody who saw it was immediately, very rightly upset and disgusted that we even let these people in the server in the first place.
I
Um, I mean, it's beyond like their crazy Maoist communist ideology. That's whatever. You can believe whatever you want. It was just this wild East Asian supremacist trolling kind of goal that they were going for.
Yeah, definitely. I I hope they never come back. Let's talk about those members of the Senate. One of the biggest, when the counterterrorism bans came out, one of the biggest voices of dissent was someone who had attempted to partner with the PUP, former Senator Lucas,
Correct. Yes.
which I find crazy.
Oh, it was very crazy. Um, because what I mean, and I don't know if that was just Lucas doing his usual Lucas things, but I think people have kind of tried to say that Lucas was like a willing participant. I think it was more likely, and this is kind of supported by what the OHS kind of uncovered. Lucas was what we call a useful idiot. Right. Well, I mean, and I say that with the most love and respect that I can muster for the guy. It's just, you take somebody who is really loud and might have some influence, who isn't really going to do his due diligence into who you really are, and you enlist him as a useful idiot. He's there to be your mouthpiece. He's there to give you legitimacy and all those things. I think even after the other shoe dropped on the PUP, he just continued that because that's just how he is. That's kind of his personality. He digs his heels in and dies on whatever hill that he's standing on, which can be a good characteristic, but can also get you in a lot of trouble. And that's something I've definitely learned in my my short adult life. Pick your battles.
Yeah, of course. How do you feel about a few days ago, Lucas had this whole rant, which it could be basically summed up by "everybody hates me," and then just left the server.
So there's two ways of looking at it. One, I will say there's something that you said about cyberbullying. As somebody who grew up on the early days of the internet, and as somebody who's dealt with cyberbullying and real life
Boomer.
bullying for that instance as well, um, obviously it's bad. It's a bad thing to do to somebody. Obviously we don't want to sit there and make people feel bad about themselves and ostracize themselves and things like that. With all that being said, there are certain things that we can do that, you know, don't turn the public against us. I think with Lucas, I don't think people were outright bullying him because of who he was. I think people were oftentimes latching on the I don't want to say conspiracy, on the scandals that he just always found himself embroiled in. There's a CPA act that ended up dying in the Supreme Court that he vehemently defended even after it was struck down. There was the whole PUP thing after we had all the arrest warrants and the CTSA bans. He vehemently defended it. There was just his overall kind of attitude and this arrogance, I guess would be the best word for it. I was thinking of the word when you said that he was better than all the government employees because he was a senator. And it's things like that doesn't inspire a lot of people to have a lot of faith in you, have a lot of confidence in you, and to really relate to you as a person. And if you don't have those things, you're just not going to get along with people, and people aren't going to have a good opinion of you. And I think that's really what happened with Lucas. I don't know if it would be fair to say that it was tantamount to cyberbullying, but I think in Lucas's case, he reaped what he sowed.
Of course. But we do have to draw the line. When is it political opposition and when is it cyberbullying? Because again, these are real people, and for many people, symptom is just a game, right? This is a
Oh yeah.
political simulation. We're just here to mess around with the government, not literally, but more like figuratively in a sense.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
it's an experiment, right? It's all about scientific method. We try things and see what happens, right? With large groups. Where and this is just my personal opinion, not don't this is not legal advice. This is not my opinion. This is not the opinion of the Department of Justice. Nothing I say here is the opinion of the Department of Justice or the
of
Attorney General's
course,
office or of the Attorney General me in my capacity as Deputy Attorney General. Where the line I think is drawn is where the criticism goes beyond being constructive and beyond being about your beliefs, positions, and ideas. When it starts to go into the personal realm, for instance, let's say somebody attacked you for being trans or gay or whatever it was. They're not attacking your ideals; they're attacking you as a person who, things about you can't even change. That's bullying, that's harassment, that's hate speech. That is not allowed. I think if somebody just has objectively, or no, I won't say objectively, there's no objectiveness in politics, but if people have political points and political positions that you objectively disagree with, it's okay to argue that. It's okay to argue against that person. Um, oftentimes with political debates, it's really easy to fall into this kind of ad hominem attack where we decide I no longer want to argue the point, I want to argue the person, and that's kind of where those conversations really fall apart at the seams, unfortunately.
of course, of course. Okay, moving on from that. I do want to bring up another thing where it seems to have a line attached to it. Um, The former QQQ, I believe they're now rebranded as Rose. A bunch of their members were arrested for hate speech, and it's brought up lot of opinions based on where do we draw the line on the use of reclaimed slurs. Because again, this is online. We don't know whether they're gay, straight, black, white. We just don't know, right? And I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Um, yeah, I think I've definitely made my opinion, or rather my stance on it clear. As far as the cases we've prosecuted, I don't care who you are or where you come from or anything like that. I'm not looking at you as, I'm not looking at your color, at your ideas or your identity or anything like that. If you commit hate speech or further an environment where people don't feel welcome, then the DOJ is going to prosecute. you know, as far as talking about reclaimed slurs, and I know the Discord community guidelines, and people call it the terms of service. specifically mentioned that as an exception, and that's okay. It's okay to have exceptions in the Discord community guidelines. However, to your point, this is the internet. This is a large community. We don't know each other. I don't know you. You don't know me. We are two faceless voices, either behind a microphone or behind a keyboard across the world. And there's no way to definitively prove that someone's black or brown or yellow or blue or purple. There's no way to definitively prove that somebody's gay or trans or whatever the case may be, right? So because we can't have that selective enforcement, it's better to just say, look, nobody can say the word, nobody can say the N-word, nobody can say the transphobic and the homophobic slurs, even if you're saying it in jest or as a quote unquote reclamation. There's all kinds of people that will take advantage of policies like that to just say it. And if you have those kinds of policies, there's nothing you can do about it, because what are you gonna do? I mean, you're gonna have people dox themselves to be able to get a pass to say it? That's ridiculous. It's all equal application of the law.
Of course. Zach, can we legalize dropping sex tapes to prove that you're gay in a court of law?
I think there's already law against it. I'm pretty sure it's a obscene materials law, but far be it from me, dude. If you
Dang,
whatever you
dang.
do in your free time.
So, this whole podcast, you've been defending the LGBTQ community, you've been defending people of color, but let's talk about this tweet you've made October 14th, 2025. You knew this was coming.
Yeah, no, I didn't know it was coming because of course it was.
Let me read it. Just an FYI, war conquered peoples. The history of humanity is one of constant conflict of competition for resources like land, food, water, and women. You whine about the fact that Europeans were and are better at this contest than men of any other race of men in the world. You losers want to regret being better at conquest and exploration than you were. You want apologies and reparations from people who were stronger and smarter than you. People who unequivocally won. We aren't sorry and we owe you nothing. Deal with it. I just want to know why.
I mean,
Why did you post that?
I can't say it was made in good taste because it was definitely not made in good taste. I look, being on the spectrum myself, I can tend to, I like many other people like me and a lot of people I've encountered in SimDem as well, can tend to misread context and misread intention, right? And I think one of those things, or rather a few of those things, definitely happened in that instance where I thought it was more of an argument against this, against anti-moral relativism, or rather against moral relativism. I can't remember which actual label it is. Rather than a kind of facially white supremacist sounding message that it was showing. Um, Obviously, it's not something I've made it a point to comment on, mainly just because of the rhetoric around it and the constant attacks. It's to me at the time it was distracting. I was trying to do cases for the DOJ, and in my view, there wasn't really there wasn't really a response, an engagement that I could do that was ever gonna be okay for them. That was ever gonna be okay for anybody. It was a catch-22. I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't. And I've been on the internet long enough to know if you're in a situation where if you do one thing, you're screwed, and you do another thing, you're screwed, just don't play.
Of course, I have fallen victim to that too. Somebody posted in general this meme of Drake's WhatsApp contacts. It was just a bunch of people, and I replied with not enough young girls because I was like, oh, Drake's a fucking pedophile, right?
Right.
And so I get attacked, and people are calling me a pedophile. Lucky for me, that lasted like 5 seconds, right? But this is during the whole PUP scandal. Their private chats were quick to latch onto that, right?
Oh yeah.
Oof. That caused a lot of stress for me.
Right. And it's just one of those things. I mean, obviously the news cycle in SimDim is very fast. So a lot of times things like that will kind of blow over in a week or a few days or what have you. Obviously, my scandal, because I don't know how I've done it. I'm apparently a a global recognized name here in the server for whatever reason. Maybe you can provide insight into that. But obviously the scandal and the and everything surrounding it is still kind of lingering.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and I'm not mad at people for being upset about it. I definitely seen. I've heard lots from different sides of the argument. People that have come to me in good faith to talk to me about it, and I've seen their point of view. I definitely have seen their point of view on it,
Of
and
course.
and clearly it was wrong. It was wrong of me to post something like that.
Of course. Of course. So, for people who know me know that I'm a relatively political person, like not just SimDem politics. I'm well versed in American politics, and I like how you mentioned that you're on the spectrum. Uh, I want to bring up on the day of Trump's inauguration, Elon Musk made a gesture that was akin to a Nazi salute, and when questioned on it, he was like, "Oh, I'm autistic. It was supposed to be my heart going out to y'all." Uh, how do you feel about people on the spectrum using that as a defense against bad behavior? I'm not like your Twitter post. Obviously, you are educated on how that may have affected people negatively, and you're doing better. But
I it's kind of a similar point that we make about the whole slow reclamation thing, right?
Mhm.
Where we can tend to hide behind either labels that actually apply to us or labels that don't even apply to us because how are you going to prove it, right? Um, it definitely can be an issue, as far as situations like that. I would say with things like that, be be open to the possibility that you might be wrong, right? Look at their other actions. One action by somebody does not define who they are. It doesn't define what they think, doesn't define their identity and all that kind of stuff. Look at what else they've done. Look at what they actually stand for. Talk to them, even if you're able. I mean, obviously we can't talk to Musk and figure out what he actually wants. He's a very public figure, the richest man alive, if you hear Forbes tell it. But I mean, on a smaller scale on SimDem, right? We have a tendency to have this mob mentality where someone does something that facially wrong, and we kind of jump on them. We don't really ever engage in good faith because it's quite frankly a lot easier to just attack them for it. Um,
Of
Obviously, if we engage with somebody in good faith and it turns out that they are a shithead, kind of like the Tide people, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's open game. Attack their ideas, attack their policies. Don't attack the person.
of course, of course. Well, it has been a pleasure doing this podcast episode with you. Is there anything you'd like to say to the public, to the citizens of Simdom, and anybody else who may watch this video?
Um, well, I thought about that before we even went on, and I thought I had something, but I guess I didn't. Other than, it's been very fun and engaging to be part of this community and part of this experiment. It definitely provides, to me, at least personally, it provides me an intellectual challenge and kind of an outlet from some of this nervous, bored energy I can get sometimes, especially when I'm not at work. So I just thank the community for giving me the opportunity to participate and engage and contribute.
Sounds good. And again, thank you for being on this podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Well, guys, this has been another episode of the SimDem Today podcast. If you liked it, be sure to like the video, and subscribe it so you'll see more of these videos in your feed. My name's Tripod, and thank you for coming. Bye.